Hi, I'm Dr. David Dobson. Welcome to Conversations. Today, my guest is Dr. Mike Ivanof, an associate professor at the University of the Fraser Valley School of Business and a self described Pracademic. Today, we will discuss how business schools can bridge the gap between academic theory and real world impact. It's a great pleasure to have you with me today, Mike.
A very good morning to you, David.
Mike, you often describe yourself as a academic. Could you define what that identity means to you personally?
Certainly. Throughout my almost quarter century of being in academia, I've seen a lot of people who went into academia straight from their, high school, university, undergrad, grad, doctoral degree, and then they started teaching. And they know the theory very, very well. They have studied very hard. Nevertheless, their theory is somewhat disconnected from practical application. And without that practical application, it's very difficult to actually combine and intertwine the theoretical knowledge with what actually is required in the real world. And that doesn't mean that someone that has done a doctoral degree and without any sort of practical application that they cannot do some phenomenal research, academic research. They could be some fantastic researchers. Nevertheless, when we talk about the skills and competencies that we need to equip the students with to be successful in the 21st century, I feel that combining the academic knowledge with the real application of that knowledge, I think that's going to simply differentiate our students in being successful in their career endeavors. So this pracademic, I think, term, it's something that we need to understand that it will give our learners an edge, an advantage in their future careers and professional endeavors.
Mike, from a scholarly perspective, how does this dual identity challenge the traditional ivory tower model of business education, particularly when preparing students for the vitality of the global south?
So that's another very interesting question. I think bringing this perspective of someone who has been in the business, and I'll have to say that I've worked at several different universities, and in different universities, I've seen people both straight from the academic background as well as from academic and practitioner background. And I've noticed that people that did have practitioner experience, they were better able to integrate the two perspectives, right? And how is this going to differentiate? Well, again, it's not just about the knowledge, but it's about the skills, it's about the competencies, it's about the ability to develop critical thinking, it's about the ability to judge a situation very rapidly, it's about the ability to develop flexibility, nimbleness, elasticity in thinking. So it's always about uh, you know uh, having this ability, as I said, to develop the most or to come up with the most appropriate solution to a problem, not just from the theoretical perspective, but also from this applied perspective. So the integration of the two, as I said earlier, I think it's definitely going to make a huge impact on the learner's ability to integrate themselves into the workforce later on.
So, Mike, in your view, is there a specific Western business theory, the one that is central to the traditional Western curriculum, that requires a total overhaul when it is applied to non-Western context like India?
Well, that's an awesome question, especially considering the fact that the world is becoming so globalized nowadays. And globalization simply means the deepening of interdependencies among nation states. And we will see the flow of capital, we'll see the flow of people, we'll see the flow of knowledge, information, data. So the world is becoming a little bit borderless, right?
Yes.
If you think about 40, 50 years ago, to go from Canada to India or vice versa would have been like almost impossible.
Mm.
Nowadays, you hop on a plane and in 12 hours you're in New Delhi. So the Western perspective needs to take into account not just, for example, India, but China, Asia, Europe, Africa. It needs to take into account all those, I would say, idiosyncrasies that define a specific culture. So we need to understand what the culture is. For example, in India, just a bit of an example, in India, if you have a meeting with someone at a specific time, let's say 4 o'clock in the afternoon, an Indian will show up, 15, 20 minutes late, and there will be absolutely no problem because everybody in India does the same thing. As a matter of fact, IST, which normally should stand for Indian Standard Time, it actually stands for Indian Stretchable Time because that's the Indian mentality, right? In Canada, the United States, and even Europe, especially in Germany, if you are 5 minutes late for a meeting, then the meeting is over. So I think bringing this Western mentality in terms of expectations, in terms of habits, and patterns of commitment, and how do we conduct business in the Western society. I think they need to be shared. Now, I'm not saying that the traditions and the customs and whatever from India, China are not important. Far away from me that thought. But what I'm saying is that we need to understand that there should be an integration between the two, and we know we kind of have to tone down the expectations on each one of the two sides in terms of cultural behavior, and how do we move with especially when I mean, I'm digressing for a second, but I think it's an important thing. We have a lot of students coming from India in University of the Fraser Valley. So when they come here, there's a bit of a culture shock because they're not expecting what University of the Fraser Valley in terms of rigor, in terms of expectations, in terms of and then all of a sudden they're woken up to reality. So that ability to sort of acclimatize yourself and to adjust yourself into the new environment, in an uncomfortable environment, to become comfortable in an uncomfortable environment, I think that's a major differentiator, and that's something that's going to I would argue is going to give the learner who is looking at both perspectives, yeah, is going to give them an edge and a differentiation in their future careers.
You have led students through the global challenge Vietnam. How do these immersive projects force a cognitive shift in students that a traditional classroom case study simply cannot replicate?
Well, again, I think it's is that integration that I spoke about earlier, right? The integration of the academic perspective with the applied perspective, and getting projects and assignments which are sort of looking at this thing not just from this theoretical perspective. I think that's going to broaden the horizon of the learner. I think it's going to give them different perspectives. In my classes, I always make a bit of an analogy, and I show my students a card, like a bank card, and I ask them, what color is it? And they say, well, it's blue or green or whatever that color is. And then I'm saying, well, you are all wrong. Because then what I do is I turn the card on the other side, and I'm showing them that the color is actually a different color. Now, does it mean that they were wrong and I was right, or that I was wrong and they were right? No, it simply means that everybody was wrong, simply because nobody had a holistic perspective on that thing.
Yeah.
So the ability to analyze and synthesize and crystallize information from different perspectives, from different angles, and to do that critical thinking that I mentioned earlier, right? To look at things from many different perspectives. I think that's something that's going to improve and enhance their cognitive skills. So this is one of the key aspects in this I would say endeavor, to make sure that we always have this not just an opportunity, but the ability to look at things and analyze things from multiple angles, from multiple perspectives. Because always, whenever we have some sort of a discussion with someone, it's very difficult for us to understand what's in their mind. because
Yeah,
we don't know what's in their mind.
yeah.
But by doing this active listening, and by not actually talking when they're talking, and really absorbing the information and digesting that information, I think we will be better able to understand what they're saying. We'll be better able to analyze and the
Mm.
information, and to come up with appropriate solutions.
Mike, you also describe yourself a global citizen, and you have lived and worked in, I think, more than 12 countries. In your experience, how do we move beyond teaching cultural checklists toward developing a true cross-cultural sensitivities that allow for meaningful diplomatic and professional integration?
That's a very, very challenging thing, right? Why?
Yeah.
Again, because we have different expectations, we have different customs, we have different traditions, we have different. Everybody was brought up in a different manner. We are the sum of our experiences through life, right? In school and high school and university, we meet people, and then we work, and so we are the sum of all the experiences,
Mm,
and everybody has its his or her own experience in the background. So it's very, I would say, it's very challenging to sort of get someone to get out of that mindset.
mm,
Nevertheless, as I said earlier, if you develop this ability to understand that your opinion is not always the best opinion, that
mm,
your opinion might not always be the truth, that
mm.
someone else may actually know better than what you know. And I'm going to digress for a second. I'll come back to this thing. Socrates said this: the more I learn, the less I know, which means that, the more you learn, the more you understand that there is so much more out there. So,
Mm.
so what you know, it becomes just a sliver of information.
That's
So
so true.
getting back to this knowledge thing, I think it's important to understand that someone else's opinion may be better than yours, but the human mind is actually stuck into, it's either my way or the highway. This is how normal human beings are actually thinking.
Mm,
So we need to understand that someone else, we don't have, like, the truth is not always like a monopoly on the truth. We don't. So someone else may have a better idea, a better solution. So we just need to be open-minded. This is the
mm,
main thing, right? We need to be open-minded.
mm. Mike, when students are brought into a new environment, they often encounter productive friction. How can faculty members better facilitate the reflection process to ensure this friction leads to learning rather than frustration?
Well, I think it's about, for the faculty member, it's about clearly stating the expectations upfront at the beginning of the process.
Mm,
Because if we don't state the expectations, then the learner doesn't know
mm,
what it's expected from them. So I think giving the learner clear guidance in terms of what needs to be done. So they need to understand exactly what are the
mm,
deliverables, what are the
mm,
timelines.
mm,
I think in that case,
mm,
um, people need certainty in life, right? They don't like uncertainty.
mm,
So once we give them some certainty and they know what the expectations are, even a rubric for a project or
mm,
whatever, I think that would kind of give them a bit of a better structure in what needs to be done, and then they would know what the expectations are, and they would be better able to prepare to deliver, within the confines of those expectations.
mm. Mike, you have also worked on GlobalBox.world, an e-commerce platform for wealth mobilization. Could you briefly explain the theory behind the platform and how it democratizes access for entrepreneurs?
Sure. So right now in this world, we have something that's called the internet.
Yeah.
And I know that you would be laughing about this, but if I was to mention this word to you 40 years ago, you would have not laughed because you would have not known what the internet is.
Mm,
And many people today, they're familiar with the internet. Some people are familiar with the IoT, which is
mm,
the Internet of Things,
mm,
but not very many people are familiar with the IOC. And the IOC is the Internet of Commerce. And
Okay.
I'm building that. So I'm
Uh,
building a parallel internet. What this platform is, this is not Amazon or eBay or Alibaba or Flipkart in India or Rakuten, or this is actually a centralized and decentralized
mm,
platform for the whole world
mm,
to actually access every single product, every single vendor, every single service in the local language, in the local currency, in the local taxation jurisdiction worldwide. So imagine that instead of having millions or maybe hundreds of millions of websites for vendors and service providers and whatnot, you have only one which streamlines everything and where everybody can converge. And the system is going to focus on hyper localization. So
mm,
just to give you an example, if you launch the platform GlobalBox.world, it's going to immediately say shop in and is going to look at the location where you are located in any
mm,
city, any village, any postal code, anywhere in the world, and is going to aggregate the products and the services and the vendors and the service providers from that particular location.
mm,
So what this platform does, as I said, it aggregates the products and the services based on the location of every user. So this
mm,
one improves, it reduces carbon footprint. It facilitates a more sustainable economic community development at the community level. Imagine that you buy something from a vendor in Abbotsford. Where do the money go? Well, the money goes to the vendor, and the vendor pays taxes. Those taxes are going to come back and build infrastructure, roads, schools,
mm,
hospitals, whatnot. If someone pays, money to Amazon, where does the money go? Well, it goes to
mm,
Amazon, which goes exactly nobody knows where. You understand? And then
mm,
there is no taxes, there is no sustainability for the
mm,
community.
mm,
So Global Box basically enables and empowers every single human being and every economic agent on the face of the planet to
mm,
actually compete against Amazon, uh, enable the whole world. It's a single point of convergence
mm,
for everybody, for all market forces
mm,
worldwide. As I said, in every language, in every
mm,
taxation jurisdiction, in every currency.
mm,
This is a game changer. So
mm,
this is not a mom and pop shop. This is
mm,
not just an
mm,
e-commerce platform.
mm.
This is a facilitated platform which simply streamlines the whole commercial exchanges at a global scale. So this is going to be the game changer. This is unprecedented. This is something. This is my, one of my most, I would say, heartfelt projects. And I think by truly implementing this project, I think we're going to transform and change the world.
Wonderful, Mike. Mike, beyond just moving goods, how does a digital platform like this change the strategic academic industry community connection in a way that transcends national boundaries?
Well, it's about the aggregation of information. Even talking about the internet, and I'm going to make a statement here, which our viewers might not like, but I'm going to say that you personally are old enough to remember when the internet was just the internet without Google. And back then, in the mid 90s or yeah, in the mid 90s, the internet was a very disjointed kind of thing.
Mm,
And what streamlined the internet were the search engines,
mm,
Yahoo, Google, yeah. Back
mm,
in late 1990s, as a matter of fact, before Google was Google, they went Larry Page wanted to Yahoo to buy them, and then they went to Excite, which was at the time
mm,
1998. Excite was the second largest search engine in the world, and Google was nobody. Was Google was the new kid on the block.
mm,
So anyhow, long story longer, they wanted to sell themselves to Excite for $750,000 and less than $1 million. And now Google is like almost $2 trillion. So you can
mm,
imagine how someone, as a matter of fact, I know exactly the someone. It was a guy by the name of George Bell from Excite who denied that deal to go through. And I think the guy is, if he's still alive right now, I think he's very, very sorry for not having bought Google. So
mm,
what these search engines do and what this platform is doing, it's aggregation of information in a very convenient and streamlined manner. This is the main thing.
mm,
See, when you go to one website and then to another and to another and to another, and every economic agent, every retailer, wholesaler, manufacturer, they all have their own websites. But
mm,
when you go to the website is built different. It's built in a structure that when you go to the next one, it's a different structure. So the brain has to constantly relearn the search methodology.
mm,
But when you go to Google, and by the way, I've made the Global Box just as simple and as streamlined as Google itself.
mm,
When you go to Google, you have all the information in one place. Now, of course, a lot of people are going to be saying today, okay, we're shifting away from Google. We are shifting into searches through ChatGPT, through Grok and Gemini and Perplexity and Claude and whatnot. But
mm,
still, Google is it's in basically entrenched in our lives.
mhm,
So the same thing. This actually, I'm always whenever I'm trying to get people to understand what Global Box is, I'm calling it the Google of Commerce. The Google of Commerce. So
mm,
it's basically a place which aggregates all the information. And getting back to academia, see, academics, what is we need to understand what our job is as academics. And a lot of people are saying, oh, you got to do research in this. Yes, but ultimately, that research has to translate into the betterment of the learner because
mm,
the academic research in vacuum, in itself is nothing unless it's transformed into a commercially viable, product, whatever. But the knowledge has to be conveyed to the learner so that we prepare the learner for the future.
mm,
So what GlobalBox does is going to enable even the academics to give the students a better connectivity with the whole world. And as a matter of fact, there are several different business streams embedded in the GlobalBox project.
mm,
And I think that academics will be able to
mm,
use those business streams from the GlobalBox thing. For example, we have an affiliate structure which allows someone to generate revenue simply by connecting vendors and whatnot. But I'm not going to get into that. But just briefly with the academic perspective, it's about, as I said earlier, enabling, empowering, providing the concrete solutions which are going to actually enable the students to be successful in their future business endeavors and professional careers. So that's the linkage, that's the linchpin that Global Box can play in between industry, academia, governments,
mm,
pretty much everything.
mm. So digital platforms can connect people, but they also bring up complex questions about how we govern those relationships. Mike, with your expertise in corporate governance, how do you reconcile Western rules with the informal relationship based governance structures found in emerging economics?
Well, again, an excellent question. And I had earlier you mentioned that I worked in 12 countries. I worked in 12 countries, but I traveled to more than 60 countries, about 65 countries.
Mm,
So, you have low context societies, you have high context societies. For example, in the Middle East, you cannot just go and shake hands and expect a business deal to be signed. In the Western world, in Canada, in the United States, if you have everything, you just go, you sign on the dotted line, the contract is done. So it's more about building relationships, which usually takes time.
mm,
It's more about building rapport,
mm,
building connections, building friendships. So it's a different approach. And once we have this, I would say, cosmopolitan mindset where we understand that different cultures operate in different manners and in different they look at things from different perspectives.
mm,
I think we would be better prepared to understand what their expectations are, how do they operate, what are
mm,
the local customs, what are the local traditions,
mm,
and then even to kind of break the ice in different
mm,
in different cultures. I think learning different languages makes a huge difference. I pride myself, when I go to India. for being able to bargain in India.
mm,
To when I go to Palika Bazaar in New Delhi, I ask them, "Ye kitna, sir, very good quality, 700 rupees," and I'm saying, "700 rupees, this is too much. I'll give you 50 rupees," right? So so they like that.
yeah,
So the fact of the matter is that we need to understand that every culture has their own
yeah,
defining traits and characteristics.
mm,
And we need to learn and we need to understand that we have to sort of position ourselves into the mindset of the person coming from that culture. I
mm,
love India. I love China. I've traveled extensively through both those countries.
mm,
I love, the Middle East,
mm,
Europe. I've been in every single country in Europe. But before you go somewhere, you really need to know what
mm,
are their expectations, what are
mm,
their customs, what are their traditions, how
mm,
should you behave in this or that environment.
mm.
So having this ability to kind of transpose yourself into this cosmopolitan type of environment, I
Mm.
think it's critical.
How do we avoid the pitfalls of educational tourism and instead ensure these projects provide a tangible, sustainable impact?
Well, once again, we have to look at education as an enabler.
Mm,
However, on the other hand, we also have to look at education from some individual's perspective, which simply becomes an immigration gate.
mm,
So, I would say that 70 to 80%, and again, I'm not gonna say that percentage is it's 100% accurate, but I would say that 70 to 80% of the students who are coming to Canada, for example, for studies, are actually committed and dedicated to learning something and to better
mm,
themselves. But I would also argue that 20 to 30% are using the education just as an immigration gate. And
mm,
many students, and this is why we are seeing a lot of, I would say, reluctance from the Canadian government to award visas, education visas to students coming from different countries, because a lot of these applicants are not really committed to coming here to study, but they're coming here to, they land in Canada and then they get a job as a truck driver, you know, and they never show up even for one hour at the university where they actually registered. So I think what we need to understand is that we need to embed some circuit breakers where we have a sifting process, a filtering process, where we try to eliminate as much as possible. We can never eliminate
mm,
fully, but as
mm,
much as possible, these individuals who are not really committed to education for the education purposes, but they are committed to enrolling into some program simply to come to Canada, get a visa, and then the moment they land, they disappear
mm,
somewhere in the fog of
mm,
of the country.
mm,
So that's my opinion. I think we need to have this better filtering process at the
mm,
country level, to ensure that whoever comes here is going to be coming for the right purpose, which is
mm,
education, and then future lives and careers and
mm,
professional and
mm.
personal, development.
Mike, you often tell your students that FAIL, FAIL, stands for first attempt in learning. Uh,
Correct.
in a high stake global environment, how can students develop resilience to view setbacks as essential data points for growth?
Excellent question. So let me tell you this. Our greatest glory is not in never falling.
Mm,
Our greatest glory is rising every time we fall.
mm,
You understand?
yeah.
Uh, there is not a single human being in this world, not a
Mm,
single human being in this world that never encountered challenges,
mm,
difficulties. Uh,
mm,
I mean, we
mm,
have all encountered those.
yeah.
But the question is, how do we develop this resilience that you
Mm,
mentioned
mm,
to always get back? And I'm gonna quote Winston Churchill here.
mm,
He said this: "Success is going from failure to failure with enthusiasm."
mm,
What does it mean? It simply means that you fail. Should you lose your enthusiasm for the next try? No.
mm,
Then you fail again. You got to have that enthusiasm. You fail again and again and again and again, and you fail a million times.
mm,
I don't know if this is just a like an urban legend, but it is said that Thomas Alva Edison, the guy that invented the light
like that.
bulb,
Yeah.
they're saying that I think it's an urban legend, but they say that he tried 999 times, and then the 1000th time he actually got it right.
Right.
But you see, it's not about the one time that you get it right. If you
Mm,
didn't fail 999 times, then
mm,
you would never have gotten to the 1000 times.
mm,
And remember that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, but then the
mm,
second step is important, and the third step is important, and the fourth, and so on and so forth. You understand?
mm,
So it's not about, it's not a, the main thing is in never giving up. If
mm,
we build this understanding that the moment you see what separates the winners from the losers,
mm,
it's this ability. It's called tenacity. It's called fortitude. It's called the ability to actually go through thick and thin. And I
mm,
usually give students a lot of like a lot of P's, to become successful. And
mm,
the very first P starts with planning,
mm,
because if you don't have a proper planning process in place, everything falls apart. Then
mm,
another important P is people around you, people that you work with, people that teach you, people from that you are going to be teaching. So
mm,
all the people in your life. Another P is persistence, right?
mm,
Persistence is very, very important. Your personality is also important, right? Who are
mm,
you, right? As a matter of fact, there is an old adage which says, people, your attitude determines your altitude. Your attitude determines your altitude, right?
yes, yes,
So another important P is performance. So how do you perform in your life? Another
mm,
important P is passion, right? If you don't have passion for what you're doing, right? And all
yeah,
these P's, when you
mm,
combine them together,
mm,
they lead to performance.
mm,
So without passion, without persistence, without nothing is going to materialize.
mm,
So getting back to this tenacity, resilience, fortitude to overcome, any insurmountable thing. You see, in life, my dear friend Dr. Dobson, in life, there is nothing insurmountable. The only thing that's insurmountable in life is death. The moment
mm,
you're dead, and that's it. It's game over. But other than that, the fact that you failed, the fact that you failed an exam, the fact that you didn't get the job that you wanted at
mm,
that point, the fact that you didn't get a car that you wanted at that point, the fact that you didn't get a whatever at that point, life has its own pathway.
mm,
You understand? So this is
mm,
for our viewers to understand
mm,
that life happens when things are meant to happen. It
mm,
never happens when we want it to happen.
mm,
There is some grander scheme and structure in this universe, and every single thing that you desire, you are gonna get it. But you will never get it when you want it. You are gonna get it when the universe, thinks that the time is right for you to get that.
right.
So that's the this resilience. It's about
Mm,
understanding that tomorrow is another day. It's
mm,
about understanding that whatever happened today, it's over. As a matter of fact, I'm going to digress for
mm,
30 seconds, but I think this is important. I have
mhm,
something that's called the 24 hours rule. 24 hours
okay.
rule. And this rule says this: if you are at the height of your success, in
Mm,
the happiest day of your life,
mm,
or if you are in the depth of despairs,
mm,
celebrate for 24 hours or mourn for 24 hours. After that, go back to work, go back to hard work. You understand? So
yeah,
yes, enjoy the successes, mourn your losses,
yeah.
but after 24 hours, you got to clear your mind and you get back to hard work, no
Mm,
matter what. Because
mm,
when you're at the top of your success, if
mm,
you stop working, then you are sleeping on your laurels, and basically it means that you're content with what you're doing, and then the world is gonna go by you. If you are
mm,
in despair, and then become depressed, and then the world is all dark and gloomy, and then you gotta you you know what I mean.
yeah.
So you cannot get stuck into either happiness or despair for more than 24 hours. After
Yeah.
24 hours, you get back to hard work. That's the key thing that's going to I hope if anybody is listening to this thing, I hope they will take this advice to heart, this 24 hours rule.
And I love your 6P you just mentioned, amazing 6Ps. Mike, what is your advice to students who feel they must choose between the path of academic research and the one of real world industry impact?
If you were to ask me this question 30 years ago, I
Yeah.
would have said that the academic research was definitely far more important than
Mm,
the practitioner research.
mm,
Sorry, the practitioner uh,
please.
perspective.
Mm,
The thing is this, the world has changed and we have a lot of emerging tools. We have a lot of, and I mentioned
mm,
earlier, a lot of artificial intelligence tools which are going to be able to actually generate much more research than any human being can ever do in their lives.
yes.
30 years ago, 40 years ago, if you wanted to do academic research, you had to go to the library, you had to go
Mm,
to some newspaper records and all sort of things and whatnot, right? There was no Google, there was no nothing, so you had to kind of do a lot of these sort of manual sort of digging into documents and whatnot, and that sort of enhanced your ability, your cognitive ability. But nowadays, I can tell you, and again, I don't wanna exaggerate, but I would definitely say that 70 to 80% once again of the research, the academic research that's done today, it's actually based on artificial intelligence, prompts and then whatever the AI spills out. So I think that the academic research is already getting diluted because of this ability to generate pretty much any type of research through AI. So the human mind is not enhancing its cognitive abilities, simply inserting some prompts into AI, Grok and ChatGPT and Gemini, and then AI spills, and then they present that. Of course, they polish the idea a little bit, but then they present it as their own original ideas. So I would say that the pure academic research path, I think it's is losing its aura of exclusivity because most of the information is generated through AI. So I would say that. The practitioner perspective combined with some academic research, I would say that's going to be the differentiator.
mm,
So I hope what I said here, I hope it makes sense. But I vividly remember when I was doing research for my own doctoral degree, for my dissertation actually. I've done a lot of studies, and I was in the library with like tons of books, and going through every book and trying to kind of find the relevant information and whatnot.
mm,
Nowadays, you don't need that because all you do is you go into any one of these AIs or into Google or whatever, and then the information is generated, and most of the people, they simply submit some of that information as is. They don't even kind of paraphrase it or change it. So as I said, I think this academic pathway in terms of research is becoming, at least from the credibility standpoint, is becoming a little bit less desirable, I would say.
mm, mm,
And it will have in the long term, it will have less credibility and less impact, right?
mm.
So, but combining that with applied skills, I think that's what's going to differentiate that learner.
Mike, thank you for sharing your academic insight with us today. It has been great to get your perspectives on global education. We wish you the very best.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dobson. I appreciate you, and I hope your viewers are going to get at least some nuggets of wisdom out of this discussion.